Hello, my name is Beck and welcome to a spoiler-free review of The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. I didn't think that I would love this as much as I did. I ended up giving it a 5 out of 5 stars, so here I am adding to the hype for this book. Let me tell you what it is actually about. So we follow a couple of different timelines because Addie is quite old. She is 300 years old. So we start out in the 1400s and we are also in the year 2014, and we jump back and forwards in time to give her life particular embellishments and significance depending on what situation she's in. So the catalyst really for this plot is that Addie, in her hometown, she was put into a marriage that she didn't want to be in, and she went to basically to the devil and made a deal, and she didn't realize the extent of the deal at the time. She just wanted freedom. She wanted to be able to make her own choices, which I feel like are themes that are quite relatable in and of themselves. But the way he interpreted that, it was him going, okay, I'm going to grant you immortality. And with doing that, it meant that he can't get access to her soul because she's immortal, so she can't give up her soul, and that is what he trades in. So he added a caveat to this curse, and that is that nobody remembers her. So the themes in this book are really deep ones of loneliness, of wanting to be known, and also art and how we have an impact on each other in the world in everyday life. And those are the themes that I thoroughly connected with and really deeply loved. I also mentioned that this obviously takes place in a time that's way more relatable to us reading it now, and that is in 2014. So there is technology, there are characters who are more modern, and one of those characters is Henry. And I can't say too much about what happens with Henry, but the only thing you really need to know is like a hook, and that is one day Addie is in the bookstore that Henry works at, and then he sees her and then remembers her. In a world where nobody remembers Addie, Henry is the only one who has, and we don't really know why. And I loved that dynamic of the plot. It made it extra layered and extra interesting to me, and it just dropped in that little bit more of intrigue when I was already interested in the themes of the book and Addie's character in general. I also want to address that, firstly, this theme explores Addie being forgotten by everybody, and in the opening sections of this book, it made me question like, well, surely she can do this and that, but V.E. Schwab actually went to specific means to, I guess, cut those questions off before they could take root and grow, because she really debunked a lot of the thoughts that I had at the beginning. I'm not going to say how or why or in what way, because finding this stuff out with Addie adds to the world building of the story, but I like the way that those weren't expectations and questions that I had carried through the book that made me not want to suspend my disbelief. So it was addressed really early on, and I really liked that about it because it was upfront with me from the get-go. And it also made me look ahead in a, okay, well, that's been established, so what now? So that what now that I was going into the beginning of the book with, it really coalesced in such brilliant character development. And like I said, I love this book. If it wasn't clear already, I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. And most of that comes from the characterization, the character development, because I mean, Addie's been 300 years in the making. And so she's gone through a lot of her development before we see her. But I love the way that the pace incorporated her character development, and that the time jumps, while I initially thought before I even started this book that it would be jarring, because usually time jumps to me are jarring, but in this book it was quite seamless and it was already very well entrenched into the narrative. It didn't pull me out of one thing and put me into something else. It was very well balanced and I really quite liked it. It's just really, really hard for me to describe how much this book meant to me, because the way that it managed to capture that essence of just wanting to be known, and obviously V.E. Schwab's a creator herself, so she had a lot of understanding of the creative process and how ideas can be so significant. And unfortunately, in the copy that I have, it was kindly sent to me by a publisher, but that meant that it didn't have all of the art pieces in it that the final copy will have. So I need to go and get me a final copy of this book so I can actually experience this book as a whole, because I only had my imagination. But I think that is what is the magic of this book. It really touched on the imagination of particular characters and how Addie got around particular parts of the curse, and the way that she interacted with people in the way that she just wanted continuations, but she only got beginnings. It was just such a genius book. And now that I've seen V.E. Schwab talk about the fact that she thought about this idea years ago and she didn't really think that she was ready to write it, I didn't understand the scope of what she meant before reading Addie. But now that I've read Addie and I'm someone who's in my late 20s, I just really, really understand it, because, you know, as someone in their late 20s, you want to be known, you want to have continuations in your life, you want to have solidarity and a place to go forward. And Addie didn't have any of that. And so I just love this book so much. It really encapsulated a lot of the things that I feel day to day, and I'm sure those are themes that a lot of people can connect with too. Initially, when I went into this, I thought that it was going to be a love story between Addie and the devil, but it's so much more complicated than that, and I think to market it as that takes away the significance of what the story is about and what the characters are striving for. And while it makes sense to say that it was kind of a love story because the devil and Addie are the only constants in each other's lives over this entire span of time, it's not necessarily a healthy span of time either, because when you know somebody for that long, cracks are going to start to show. So what I'm saying is, to avoid spoilers, it was messy, but it was incredible. I shed tears and I was so satisfied by the ending, and I was also quite hesitant about the ending because I thought, oh, it could fall into like not a cheesy ending, but an ending that wouldn't be fully satisfactory, but it managed to sidestep that and go into the satisfactory ending instead. And obviously I'm being vague here for a particular reason, because this is a spoiler-free review, but she handled it incredibly well and with a maturity that I loved, and in a way that was satisfying without being too corny. And I think that is what made it honest and raw and real to me, at least one of the reasons that it made it those things for me. But the way it set everything up as well, it was just like chef kiss. It was amazing. Also, as a side note, I don't think I've actually ever read a book with a love interest who is a bisexual man, and Addie, I think, is a bisexual woman. So that's just something that I wanted to point out. I haven't seen anybody talking about that, but it was just done so seamlessly. It wasn't like spotlighted, but it was quite obvious so that you couldn't really skirt around the possibility of that not being a thing. So it was balanced in a very significant way, and I quite liked that as an addition to the characters and the storytelling that was happening. I don't think I'm going to be able to vocalize this without looking back at my notes, so I'm just going to read what I wrote at the end of my review when I was madly typing all of my notes after I finished reading Addie. And that is, in writing this, Schwab did for us as creatives, as readers, what Addie wanted all along. She's made us feel seen, she's acknowledged the wanting to be known feeling, and managed to put a cluster of emotions onto a page to be understood, and for that I commend her. Whether you've read V.E. Schwab before or not, I think you'll enjoy Addie regardless. Her prose does seem a little bit different compared to what she's written in the past. It's a different flavour, but it's still very distinctly V.E. Schwab with all of her morals and characters and themes, and so I think old and new readers will really love her. I've certainly enjoyed her past work, and obviously Addie was a 5 out of 5 for me, and absolutely a new favourite. It's probably my favourite book of 2020, to be perfectly honest. It did such a seamless, beautiful, wonderful job. It was emotional, it was captivating, and like I said throughout the entire video, I loved this book so much. If you have read Addie, or if you are planning on picking up Addie, please let me know down below in the comments. I want so many people to read this book because it holds such a beautiful, special place in my heart, and like I said, it's a favourite now of 2020 and of all time for me. So thank you so much for watching this video. I will chat down below to you in the comments, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.